and welcome to Everyday Woman, where everyday women are celebrated in every way. This is Open Dialogue, and today's topic is the aftermath of Katrina. 2 years later, now what? I could go into a big introduction about this, but one of the things that I wanted to be forthright about regarding Katrina was my ignorance. Until 2 years ago, when New Orleans was underwater, I have to be honest enough to say, and I consider myself to be a well-read, a well-educated person, I had no idea that people in America lived in those conditions, were that poverty-stricken. And to hear where the individuals who decided to come back to New Orleans are today bleeds my heart. And so I want us to talk about just Katrina as a whole, what happened, why do people live in those conditions even in 2006 when we're fighting wars and we're doing things. Just really talk to me about it, because I felt bad because I just had that ignorance.
Well, I think what Hurricane Katrina did was reveal the reality of what was going on in New Orleans. What it did was took the cap off the cup, because there were so many people living in poverty, barely surviving in America in 2006, that seemed like they were on some foreign land when they were actually taxpayers just like you and I, but for whatever reason they were not getting the assistance that they needed. And I can speak from truth because I lived in New Orleans for 4 years and I visited the Ninth Ward, and there were cases where there were kids that didn't even have shoes to wear to school. There were schools that didn't even have running toilets, and we were sending our kids to these schools to be educated. This was not a myth. This was going on for years and years, and I think what happened was people tried to ignore that there was a problem. I would never forget the scene where I actually saw little kids walking up and down the street with no shoes on. I was visiting New Orleans actually 2 months before Hurricane Katrina hit, and I was attending a church service, and there was a young lady, she looked to be about 6 months pregnant, and she had 4 other kids with her, and they were like 1 year apart, and one little boy had a shoestring holding up his pants, and he had on these little flip-flops that looked like the sole of the bottom of them had already been worn out. So literally his feet was probably rubbing the ground as he walked. And this was going on in 2006. You know, we asked what's going on with our taxpayer dollars. We can send them overseas to war, but here we are, have American citizens who pay their taxes just like anyone else and barely have the necessities they need to survive. I asked the question, what is going on in America where we have people in 2006 that lives like this on our watch?
Okay, Demetrius, when you say that, there's 2 things that I want you to help to educate me on, because I opened up about saying my ignorance. The first one is what Katrina did for me was give me an understanding that while the government did not respond, my position is we can put all the systems in place that we want to, but the person has to want help. The second piece is I believe that we have an obligation to help individuals. I believe it is my position that the government's responsibility is to provide an environment for everyone to be able to live the best life they can. And that's the end of their responsibility. So when you give the story to me of the young lady who was 6 months pregnant, had 4 children behind her, and her children's shoes were wearing out, please don't take my position that I don't necessarily care, because I care, but why is she continuing to dwell in that existence?
I don't think she knows any better.
Okay, exactly.
I think she's a product of her environment.
Exactly.
And how do you expect someone to do better and advance themselves when they're sending their kids to a school that don't even have running water? When they're sending their schools to be when they're sending their kids to a school to be educated and there's no textbooks. And I know this for a fact because my good friend was a teacher at one of the schools in the Ninth Ward when she literally had to go to her classroom and there were a urine smell that literally almost controlled the classroom. How do you expect kids to learn in those type of environments? And this is a mother living in this environment, trying to advance herself and her kids' lives, but this is what she has to work with.
Yeah, I agree
At
with,
some point,
I agree. Like, and I'm hearing these things, and I agree that it's horrifying, and I agree that the government, that some of those people need to take responsibility. And then we hear the government needs to, but when I hear the word we, I think what's missing is the yous and the I's, the us. What can we do? And oftentimes I feel a little bit like, okay, well, I could give some money here, and I have, but then where's it going to? Or sometimes I will, and because so much is going on in my world, and I'm just as responsible, I leave it there. And I hope that my money's going somewhere. But what can we do? Well, I mean, we have an election coming up. We can sort of listen to where people stand on that as far as the politicians go, but I think what's missing is you and me are the ones that need to help educate.
And I'm so glad you said that, because Essence, Suzanne L. Taylor, the former editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, started a program called Essence Care. And what Essence Care mission is to do is mentor 1 million inner city kids between now and 2009. And what that is doing is saying that we're not going to depend on the government to fix this situation. We collectively, you and I, can get together and pull our people up by their bootstraps and stop depending on someone else to do the job that we can do ourselves.
Now that piques interest. What I want to say to you, Demetrius, is you raised the issue that I'm thinking about. Why is it that in New Orleans they don't have books? The classroom smells like pee, but then when I go to Beverly Hills, we have the state of technology. Here's what I will propose for you to consider. I don't want to make it racial. I want to make it class structure. You have an environment where there is poverty. And so while some of these individuals are taxpayers, I'm not saying that they're not, what do they contribute to the bottom line? And I think that is why, and what we can be honest with that, people won't openly say it, but I'll say it, unless you are contributing to society, your welfare and your being really is not of importance. Is it right? Absolutely right. Absolutely, it's not right. And that's why we have to do what we can. But we cannot ignore it, and we cannot say that that is not the way it exists. For a simple fact that in New Orleans, those students do not have books, and they're educated in the same country where my daughter goes to school in Virginia Country Club, and they're giving away books. What is the problem? What is the nexus? Is it because they're black? No, it's not. Throwing away. Is it because we're black? No, it's not. Because what is that dynamic? And you say, well, she didn't know better. She doesn't know. She's in an environment. She's in a children's school where they don't have books. So that's okay? So you just keep sending your child to school because they don't have books? At what point does it click to you and say, you know what, I deserve better than that? Who gives that lesson? Who shakes you, Demetrius, and says that?
But you know what? I hear you, Stacy, but realistically, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you have a 16-year-old who is a mother of 4. Her mother had her when she was 15. Her grandmother had her. So what you have is this generational cycle going on, and you're saying, why don't she wake up? But what mentors, what examples do she have around her to show her a better way? We're assuming she should automatically know, but if you looking around and everybody around you is living like you, then this becomes the norm. You know nothing else. And then when you complain about things that's going on in your neighborhood and nothing gets done, at some point that destitutions kind of sit in on you, and you begin to accept this as this is all that there could be. I think what Hurricane Katrina did was gave some of those individuals an opportunity to see a better life, because many of them had the opportunity to now relocate to Houston, relocate to Atlanta, and now their kids are in better situations. So now they can reach for more, they can aspire for more because they see more. But if you in a situation where you don't even see anything else but this, then I think it's kind of, I mean, realistically, I can honestly say I'm a college educated woman, but I can truly say if I was born and raised in that situation and that's all I knew, I can't say that I would have aspired to be more and do more, because I would have eventually became a victim of my circumstances. So that woman, I'm hoping that she was able to move on with her life and, you know what, get a new start. But in some cases, some people don't. And the question is, how do we rectify the situation? We have to hold our politicians to their words and ourselves to make a difference. If we say we're going to do something, if we're going to increase, if we're going to decrease the violence in a certain neighborhood, let's do that. Let's make that our forthright and stay on it till the job gets done. Let's not just hype and blow up issues when it's time for an election just to get everyone roused up. And then when it's time to put the action behind it, then no one is available to be found. Like, when Hurricane Katrina went down, everyone wanted to point fingers of who fault it was that the help did not come on time. But at some point, stop pointing fingers.
Demetrius, I love your passion on this topic. Kimberly, thank you so very much. I think that we could talk about this for a while, but what I do think that all of us agree on is that something needs to be done, and there's a lot of ownership in this, and this will be a good time as the presidential candidates are out there putting their move. This will be a high time for particularly our young people to really find out what the change is going to be, because you're right, now that we know about it, what are we going to do about it? Everybody involved. So with that being said, Open Dialogue is now closed.